Hello, Cory, and welcome to the Make Life Rich Movement podcast. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Everyone, you are going to be absorbing a ton of information today, but I guarantee you it's the information you've been looking for quite some time. If you find yourself or believe yourself to be a victim of PCOS, I personally don't know a woman that isn't. So I'm very thankful for your time today in this conversation because I know it's going to help a lot of women that are maybe not aware of yet that there are things that they can do to aid themselves with, the symptoms and just the way it affects your life. And I, for one, am very thankful for your education and the things that you offer because they just make so much sense to me in the way in which that I like to approach healing for my body. And it's just really sound, great advice coming from a registered dietitian. Cory is the woman's dietitian on Instagram. I'm sure you're following her and I'm sure you're very excited right now to be hearing from her because Cory is one of those women that just took PCOS by storm on Instagram and got to talking about the real things and got to talking about the real ways in which you can start to make an impact by your next cycle. And that for me really clicked and I really enjoyed that. So there's so many cool things about you that we'll get to later in the episode. But Cory, I would first love to thank you for coming on. And second, I would love to know where your journey with food and healing first came to be.
Yeah, a good question. I was a very picky eater as a child. And it's funny because my daughter, who's 5, is exactly like the way that I was. And it's like, how did my mom survive this? Yeah. And then I just started experimenting with all kinds of stuff. I lived with my dad for a year and a half after a failed stint at a psychology degree in graduate school. I didn't like it. It wasn't for me. And I left and I had nowhere to live. And my dad said, come live with me. And I hadn't lived with him since I was 7. So my dad was a amazing just home chef. And I cooked with him and I cooked alongside him. We would go to the market, get our ingredients, and we would just spend so many hours in the kitchen together. And now that he's gone, I hold those memories so dear to my heart. And I really fell in love with food as medicine, that whole idea, because he really saw it as that and used it as such. So I learned more about that. And I knew that I wanted to work with food in some capacity, but I knew that I wasn't just destined to be someone who was a chef in a kitchen. Although I love that and I did that for a little bit, I wanted to kind of do a little bit more in terms of how can I use food as preventative medicine, right? Because that's really what it can be. So it sort of took me on a journey to graduate school for another degree, which I did finish, which was to become a dietitian and learn, the science behind nutrition. What are nutrients really for, and what do they do inside the body, and how can they heal you from the inside out? So I just dove into that whole world and became a registered dietitian. I worked in kitchens, commercial kitchens. I worked in senior living communities. I worked in hospitals. I worked at a jail. I've done it all. Women's clinics. I've done it all. Kaiser, big hospitals. So at the end, I thought I was struggling with my own health when it came to PCOS, which I really didn't know what it was until my 20s. I'd always struggled. And that's when I started learning more about how much diet can impact a PCOS diagnosis, either for the better or for the worse. And so I really dug into that and I learned so much. And I decided I want to work in PCOS as a dietitian because I feel like I can make such a big impact that way using food sort of as medicine. And that's what I've done. And I think cooking and food now, to me, I'm in my mid 30s. I have 3 children, 3 little ones. Food and cooking to me now is healing in a very different way. It's more so focused on, now that I feel like I've gotten many things when it comes to my PCOS better under control than I ever had in the past. And I thank myself and the work that I've done for that. I still struggle though. I want to say, like, at PCOS, there's not some mountain where I'm up at the top. I've made it. Woo! I'm looking down at everyone else. That's not what it is. I'm on a journey as well, but I do feel like I have such a better grasp on it now and I understand it better. But I really use food now in that sense of, making memories with my family and cooking because I enjoy it and it feels good. And I love to know that I have control over what I'm putting in my body versus all of the chemicals and all the things that we encounter and can encounter in food out there, which is just sadly the kind of current food political scape right now. So yeah,
Man, first, I'm so sorry for your loss of your father.
thank you.
I also lost my father, and I find it really
So sorry.
interesting that we both looked to food as medicine because of our fathers. Mine was
Mm,
realizing after he had passed from cancer, like, wow, just because of the lack of outward knowledge and, frankly, I guess, research and science at the time, there were no, um, you know, friendly articles you could find on Instagram that lead you to thinking that changing your diet might be able to help your cancer or help your body to heal, and just so many things that I'm now very thankful to have access to that information for. But I do understand your uh the grace and effort that goes into food being medicine for you, because you got to see how it was medicine for your father. And I think that's a beautiful thing for you to also be able to model with your children in the memory making that you're doing. It's just
absolutely.
it's also one thing that I really love about your approach to PCOS and taking it under control for yourself is that, a lot of what you're discussing, I want to get so deeply into the dietary side of everything. But to me, I was really blown away by a lot of the lifestyle changes that you are always talking about. And most of them seem to give you the ability, if you so choose, to involve your family in doing them. And it sounds like that's a really beautiful way that you and your partner and your children are being able to kind of live together in a way that's allowing you to heal and also simultaneously really great for their health. So I
Yes.
would love for you to go into that a little bit.
Yeah, I think about those funny little memes that I see where it's like, oh, I feel like crap. Oh, well, have you drank it? How much water have you drank today? Well, how much did you sleep last night? Well, it's what did you eat? Well, I didn't. So it's like, okay, we have to keep this running list of things that we know to help us feel good and help us feel like we're taking care of ourselves and feeling confident in that. And I think that list varies per person, right? Like for someone, that might mean a 3-mile run at 5 o'clock in the morning. That's not me, but I love that for somebody else. My list includes other things. So I think it's about building your own list that you can, I love lists, to do lists, but building your own list that you can always come back to when you're feeling like you're just kind of floating and things are flaring. Your PCOS is popping off in whatever way that she does, and you're just feeling out of control. And I think that feeling of feeling grounded and more connected with your body and like you are in the driver's seat, that is goes so far. The mindset piece plays into that. But collect your list. What are your 10 things that you can look at and always come back to that make you feel good again? And it could be a number of things. It could be, exercise and movement. And I'm just going to list off some that are common. Exercise and movement. When's the last time you intentionally moved your body in a way that you enjoyed and that felt good? You didn't feel forced. It wasn't too much, but it felt like enough. There's all kinds of criteria there, but that's one. From the kind of adrenal nourishment, stress management standpoint, what are you doing to take care of your adrenals? Because they're so important. And I know we hear a lot about them online, and I'm glad we're talking about it. I think women, especially, are kind of going through now this sort of revolution, this transformation where we are like, wow, we have taken on a lot. And maybe we need to dial it down a little bit and simplify because maybe our stress levels are driving us a little bit too crazy. So, and I'm right there with you if you're feeling like that's you. But so, stress reduction and management and your adrenals, healing them, that's one thing to kind of add things to your list. From your gut health. The health of your gut is intricately connected to your hormones and really your whole health. So, what are you doing there to make sure that your digestion is feeling good, everything's flowing properly? Sleep, what's going on there? Is there a lack of sleep, or is there a lack of quality rest? Do you not have a nice bedtime routine? Are you scrolling yourself to bed and scrolling yourself awake? We have to take a look at our habits and be honest with ourselves. Like, are my habits helping me or are they hurting me? And it's okay, there's no right or wrong answer, but just being transparent with ourselves and going back to the things that we know can make us feel good again, I think is just such a game changer when it comes to our hormones and our health. So those are the things I try to highlight.
I love that, and I love that they're very easy to do and they're free.
Yeah.
Most
Yeah,
of them
I
are
love
free,
that. Woo! Yes.
like, so easy to add in. I really love the meme that you had up, I think it was the other day, where it showed, like, a full night's sleep and what setting yourself up for that looked like and what a less than 6-hour night's sleep looked like, and it sure enough, the one that you know is gonna have a short night's sleep is scrolling. The
Yeah.
lights are on, it looks like you're not really in a cozy bedtime zone, and the other, with the longer night of sleep expected, was
Mhm.
reading a book. He looked a lot
Mhm.
more cozy, it looked a little dimmer, like, there was just such an evident decision made in both of those outcomes of sleep, and I think it's just the simple reminders like that, that you truly can set yourself up to have these wins and these, like, micro actions that are gonna compound over time, and I think what I love about your approach is that you treat it as a whole body of needing things to be paid attention to, which I think a lot of doctors, especially, are not really taking the whole picture into account. So, when you're discussing your time, not only paying attention to diet and who it's affecting, I mean, you saw the gamut of the different types of diets and things that are needed for people at whatever point of life they're in. For a woman that is finding herself, if not with a diagnosis of PCOS, just recognizing that whatever her body and her health related to her hormone cycle is not feeling its best. She's feeling sluggish. There's a lot more pain than she feels like should be there. What would be the first steps that you would suggest for someone in trying to just get a handle on what their typical cycle is feeling like? Because I think for me, it was just really getting into a place of like body awareness and being like, whoa, how did I ignore this for so long? This is the
Mhm.
oddest thing ever. This is uncomfortable. I feel sick. When I eat that, I don't like it. Like there was just so many aha moments that I just found a little shocking took so long to be aha moments. So if we could help some people along here, that would be great. So what would you recommend for someone in that place right now?
Yeah, and I think I love that you said that. I think the aha moment can sometimes sound like, aha. Okay, there it is. Yes, yes, aha. It could take a while to get there. That's okay. That is okay, as long as we get there. I think what I'm hearing your question is if someone just kind of just starting out and they're just recognizing now that things are off and they don't know where to start and they have a PCOS diagnosis. It can really I hate this answer, but it's also my favorite answer. It kind of depends on exactly what the situation is. Someone who is noticing something like hair loss is going to go on a slightly different journey than someone who is experiencing a missing period for the last 9 months, right? And 9 months. They're not pregnant. It's missing because it's missing. So I think it sort of depends on, what exact specific set of symptoms that you are working on solving. I think one of the best things that you can start with is getting a very solid understanding of your body. And like, when else do we get this, right? Like, we have sex ed, we have in school for like 2 minutes taught by like your like high school football coach. Okay. Like, not enough. Where else are we? A lot of our parents don't take the time to talk about it, which, like,
No.
my mom is amazing and did. And I hope to do the exact same with my kids, both my girl and my boys. But a lot of us don't get that information from our parents. So, where are we learning the inner workings of our bodies, our hormones, what's going on with our, certain set of symptoms, especially PCOS? So, one of the best places you can start is to learn about your own body. Like, we should already be doing that, but we just don't. It's not our fault, but we just don't. So, testing, starting with a panel of some tests that you can get run to help you understand what is off. Because if you are experiencing, I'm going to go back to hair loss. Say you're experiencing hair loss and you're like, what is going on? I've got these clumps falling out. It's embarrassing. It's frustrating. I don't know what to do. And then you go get some blood work done, and you can get all kinds of blood work. And if you're like, well, what do I get tested? I would ask for a full hormone panel. I would ask for your iron, your vitamin D, D as in dog, and vitamin B, B as in boy, 12, as well as a full thyroid panel, if you can swing it, if you can get that. Your blood sugars, so A1C, fasting insulin, fasting glucose, you could start there. And say you're experiencing this horrible hair loss and you don't know what to do, and you go get your blood work done, and it comes back with low iron, Your iron's in the toilet, and shocker that you've also been feeling extremely fatigued and like you just can't get out of bed. And then also, what comes back is elevated testosterone. So, all three of those things can cause hair loss. So, now we have before we didn't. Now we have a direction, right? We see things are low or high where they shouldn't be. And now we know where to attack. We know we want to get that testosterone down. And we also know we need to up your iron and your, what did I say? What did I say? Vitamin, no, iron. Your iron was low. Did I just say iron? And
Yeah, iron B and D?
to get tested, yeah. So sorry. So your iron was low and your testosterone was high. So now we
Hi.
have a direction, right? We can go forth in lowering testosterone and increasing your iron, and that can help to restore your hair, the hair that you've lost. So just having that knowledge, I think I always say knowledge is power, is so important because it allows us to really go in the right direction, right? Anyone could be losing hair and go invest in these expensive, fancy, trendy supplements like I'm not even going to name names, but that are
Mhm.
ridiculously priced for hair loss. But are they really increasing her iron and decreasing her testosterone? No, they're not going to do squat. So I'd rather we start with that basis of data. And I always like to look at the data because I don't want to just blindly make recommendations. So if you haven't had recent labs done, most insurances will cover an annual round of blood work, and you can go get that done. And you can ask for certain things like I listed off. You could replay this or you could put it in the show notes. I also have a info in this on my Instagram page, but at least then we have a starting point, and I think that's the best place to start.
I love that. And I also love that you make it just very matter of fact. Like there are ways that you can start immediately by also having something that you can monitor levels of over time. Because I think there is a really big disconnect for some women that I know with PCOS, and their doctors are, supportive and understanding that something is wrong, but they're not taking the time that someone like you is into becoming an absolute expert on the topic when they're also delivering babies and giving like
Yes.
Gardasil vaccines. Like
Yeah.
it's across the gamut, their focus. And
Yes, it's
a
so
lot
true.
of women become really disenfranchised because they'll come to their doctor and say, well, I heard this or I saw that. And then they'll say, oh, there's nothing to it. Well, you are able to run your own blood panel. I know many women that have, and then they do have this tool, excuse me, to then go back to their doctor and say, as I thought, because my iron was low and my testosterone was high, I'm finding myself in this place of fatigue. What do you suggest we do about it? And then, there are never number of instances where at that point you're being taken more seriously. And I think there is a lot to be said about women's reproductive health having such a beautiful resurgence over the last few years of us
Mhm.
all individually being armed with a lot more information so we can advocate for ourselves in times where the our female ancestors over the last couple of decades have really taken a full plate of crap for us for a very long time. And I think it's all within our power to take Cory's advice. And if you find yourself in a place where you're just not happy with how you feel and you're not hearing the things that are leading you to a direction of finding some type of relief for yourself, this is something that you can do, that you do have the power to do yourself. And I think it's really important to not only have it be coming from someone who understands how food is affecting your body and how these things can be properly supported with meal plans and nutritious recipes and thinking about the timing of what you're eating when. And there's just so many little anecdotes that over time you can kind of add into your tool belt that are going to not only give you the ability to at the very least mitigate some of the negative symptoms that you're having over time, but also it really does set you up for quite a healthy lifestyle that I would imagine would also support you through menopause and beyond as a woman with our hormone needs,
Yes.
which is, I'm sure, a huge other topic you could jump into really quickly. But I love the way in which you articulate how and when you eat and drink certain things throughout your day in order to not spike your cortisol, get a lot of hormone responses going, get your body firing on the wrong things and sending it into like an energy deficit. Could you go into that, because you just explain it so beautifully, and I think it's something people will be able to latch onto immediately.
Yeah, totally. So I get asked a lot about intermittent fasting And I think fasting definitely has a time and a place for religious purposes. And I will just lead with that. And I've never, and this is not, intermittent fasting is a totally different thing. Intermittent fasting, if we're using that as a tool for, and I will say this too, if that is like the greatest thing in the world for you, the only thing that's worked well, awesome, like go with that. I'm never going to go against, your unique lived in experience. Go for it. But on the whole, generally what I find is that the rigidity does not promote longevity. And it's really balance and flexibility and that fluidity and that approach that we see can work well in the long run. So intermittent fasting and, consistent meals and snacks help your body and your hormones feel safe. And I get asked a lot about that. What do you mean feel safe? Okay, so say back in the day, our ancestors were running from like a saber-toothed tiger, your body is in fight or flight mode. Your cortisol is through the roof. And at that time, if you are in it, like we've seen this in so many different scenarios where there's been famines or big, some kind of emergency event, some catastrophe, and reproduction rates can go down because our hormones need to feel safe in order to flow properly at the right time and the right amounts. And by skipping meals deliberately, we're putting our body under stress. Steady blood sugar and, glycemic control, your body likes to depend on a rhythm. And consistent meals and snacks can deliver that. And not just like, naked carbs or, like a bowl of cereal or, it needs to be something that has some sustenance, some, it's sturdy, something with protein, fat, and fiber. That helps to stabilize blood sugar. And so a lot of times I see women who wake up, they have coffee, maybe they grab a little something fast, and then they really don't eat until maybe a small snack until 3 or 4 p.m. And then they get home and they eat this big dinner, then they kind of, not, this is not the proper term, but they sort of binge, they eat a ton of food in a small period of time. And it's not necessarily food that is supportive of our goals. And then they feel guilty and the cycle continues and they gain weight and their hormones are unhappy with them. It's a vicious cycle. And then they say, well, when I wake up in the morning, I'm not hungry. So I don't eat breakfast. My counter to that is always to ask, what is your largest meal? Like, what are we eating before we go to bed? And if that's the time when they eat the most, we got to pare that down. And it's a gradual process, but the goal is to wake up hungry. The goal is to eat something that is stabilizing for your blood sugar, 15, 20 grams of protein at least. Get that in and get some fiber in there too. And that's going to set your blood sugar off on the right foot all day long. You're going to have more energy, less cravings. We see way more cravings when we wake up and eat in that first scenario, or don't eat, that I just mentioned. And of course, it's by no fault of our own. If we go so long without eating, your body doesn't, you don't crave like a head of romaine. You want the snacks, like you want the good stuff. So of course we can't blame ourselves. That's just biology. So giving yourself, which sounds counterintuitive to weight loss, because I think in the context of weight loss and hormone balance, we think that we need to eat less. And then, of course, that never works. It backfires eventually. And then we end up eating more. So if you are working towards those goals, it's really that consistency and getting in more food throughout the day that will then allow, or actually not allow, any of those feelings of like, I need it all at the end of the day to creep in. Blood sugar control and blood sugar management is so key to so many different hormones. Your cortisol, obviously insulin, even testosterone. When our blood sugar is dysregulated, it increases our testosterone. Our ovaries pump out more androgens. So that can make things like facial hair and body hair and acne, hair loss, irregular periods. It can make all of those things worse. So you really want to focus on that. So if you are someone who skips meals, doesn't snack at all, waits till the end of the day, and then doesn't wake up hungry, that's really the behavior. Therein lies the change that we really need to work on. And it can make all the difference as long as we put the right systems in place. I see so many people thinking, well, if I eat a smaller breakfast and I skip lunch, then I can work towards weight loss goals. But it actually works the opposite. It's the opposite of what we believe that we think is true.
Man, I think there's so much to be said there for what you just said. And the part that is dinging for me like a loud bell right now is being able to monitor symptoms popping up like facial hair and,
Mhm.
acne and that just being a direct response to my body being like, when are we eating? Like, what's going on here? Why? Why?
Yeah.
And I am that you described in detail how I eat, and I've been trying really hard to get protein in the morning. And you're right. I never thought about I'm not hungry in the morning because I'm literally overloading my body and my digestive system with so much food. And yes, I'm at rest while sleeping, so it's digesting, but my body is not at rest because I'm digesting. And it's got to be keeping a lot of processes from not being able to fire and wire the way that they need to keep all of your hormones in check. You mentioned weight loss being difficult, and certainly the structure of what you eat and when you eat it, as you just stated, has a lot to do with it. But I think people are this is going to date me. I'm 39. Back, when you were homesick from school, you'd watch like Montel Williams. There'd be a
Yeah,
commercial on for
totally did too.
something something belly fat pill, cortisol keeps fat around the waist, and you're like, okay. I'm like 14, like, okay, good to know, good to know. So like everyone of a certain age knows cortisol from literally that commercial. That was probably the first time you ever heard it, and you're like, oh man, I don't want any of that. I don't need any cortisol. I'm good. But like,
I mean, like, what is even my stress? Yeah.
yeah, but I think now women in their 30s are certainly, especially I would imagine mothers are very aware of cortisol and how much they need to get it under control. And I love so much of your educating around how you can utilize your diet to help with cortisol. So could you kind of bridge that connection here? Because I know everyone is trying to lower their cortisol, and I bet they'd be very excited to know that they can help do that with their diet.
Yeah, that's a great point. I love this too. So, what we think of cortisol, right? Cortisol is our, let me just back up. Cortisol is our stress hormone. It's very well known. And what we don't realize is that we can actually affect our cortisol through our diet. And, we think about cortisol being raised by being late for work or traffic or a horrible event that happens. How we eat can actually impact our cortisol, and that is through, again, blood sugar balance. When your blood sugar is not stable, it's a stressor on the body. The body wants to be at balance, so it works overtime to try to correct that. So, by giving your body the right amount of protein, fat, fiber, carbs that it needs and not overdoing it or overloading it on one or the other, underdoing it on the other, you can really work on your cortisol. Cortisol is also impacted by sleep. Poor sleep can impact cortisol negatively. Exercise, we all hear about exercise. Don't exercise hard because it'll spike your cortisol. That spike is temporary. Exercise will spike your cortisol temporarily, but the benefits of exercise far outweigh any temporary cortisol spikes. So, movement has so many benefits, and it actually, over time and on the whole, can help lower cortisol because it can help boost mood, which then reduces cortisol. So there's a lot on the internet about on the internet in the on yeah online on social media about exercise and cortisol. But that's the truth. That's how biology works. So yeah, there's lots of things that can impact cortisol, but we can use diet in terms of blood sugar regulation to help benefit us. Or on the other way around, if you're eating a diet that is not beneficial for blood sugar balance, which many of us are, and we might not even realize it. We might not even know that we're impacting our cortisol negatively, but we are. So if you're wondering, okay, protein, fat, fiber, carbs, how much do I get? Great question. And that depends on you. That depends on your unique body, your goals, what you're working towards. We all have a number that is sort of ideal for us to be consuming when it comes to these macronutrients, which are protein, fat, carbs, and I also count fiber. Fiber is a little bit more general in terms of how much we should be getting, but we all have our own unique numbers, and that's what I help clients to figure out. How much should you be eating to support your body and your goals, whatever they may be? And it can really vary per person. So working on that and fine tuning that can do so much for your health as a whole when it comes to your mood, your stress levels, your sleep, your PCOS symptoms, your other hormones, your weight, your fertility, whatever it is.
I love the work that you do and the information that you share about fertility, and namely a woman trying to
Mm-hmm.
repair or assist
Yes.
herself in getting pregnant or whatever is needing assistance on that journey. And I didn't ever really piece together how just the sheer program that you put together for not only giving an individual the power to help themselves with PCOS, it's also giving them the power to help their fertility, which
Mhm.
in turn is helping them to nourish the baby that they're growing, and then also supports them having, I guess, less likelihood of there being gestational diabetes and all the complications that come with that, and then leading to a better postpartum because you're also still supporting those hormones that are in such fluctuation. It kind of, in preparing for this conversation, kind of clicked for me that you are truly just helping us to nourish the part of our body that nourishes our vitality and keeps everything flowing and growing and evolving. It's just such a beautiful testament to, taking something from nature like food and being able to just use it in the way it's always supposed to have been used. And I think we're in a really cool period of time right now where there's a lot of, I think, a returning of autonomy to the way in which you choose to fuel your body and nourish your body. I think, 40 and under are really diving deep into these different topics and becoming experts in a way because they've helped themselves with, the thing that they're kind of putting out there. And I think for PCOS, a woman would only really trust another woman who has been through it to help her to get to a place of empowerment and being able to support herself. And I can imagine before you created all of this, like, who did you turn to get this information? Because it's been a really dark, the channel's been dark for a while and it's only started coming out the last, I'd say, 5 years, but you've had PCOS for a number of years. What was your journey like, and who did you turn to, and how did you kind of navigate all of this while also dealing with PCOS?
Yeah, yeah, good question. I always say that I aim to be the person that I wish that I had back then, because I definitely, it's isolating when you don't understand and when you don't. But yeah, but I was diagnosed before social media was even really a thing, so I couldn't just go follow someone and learn and digest and understand. I didn't have that. So for me, it was just putting together my own personal experience. And I used a lot of the work that I did in graduate school, what I had learned. And then I also learned so much from some of the people that I worked with throughout the years. I worked underneath a dietitian who specialized in oncology, and I helped her write 2 books. I did so much recipe testing and research, so much research, and I learned so much about hormones because we a lot of times would dive into estrogen, and its connection to food, right, and food and how that can impact estrogen levels, how weight can impact estrogen levels, all of these things that have to do more on the oncology side. But really, the food is medicine. I learned a lot from her there. I worked in a variety of women's clinics. I worked alongside some incredible OBGYNs and nurse practitioners and nurses. And we had a lot of patients who had endometriosis and PCOS. I learned so much just by being there and treating them and being in the room and talking with them, working in different hospitals and working in different kitchens. I didn't learn about PCOS specifically in kitchens, but I learned so much about food in general. So I think it was just kind of a collection of different things that I've done, and they've all served me in different ways. And just, yeah, talking to different women, doing as much research as I could on the condition. What little we learned about hormones in growing up or in grade school and in high school, really I learned a lot more in graduate school, and I'm so glad that I did. So it was really just a hodgepodge and collection of all of those things, but that is where my business came from, hoping to be a source of information and help and guidance for people just the way that I was in looking for answers and looking for support.
The authenticity of that journey, I think, and the fact that you suffered through it while trying to figure this out, and then also getting the community aspect of it and, learning from others along the way, it truly makes sense that that was how this all came to you, because I deeply respect the hustle of those that are putting their businesses out there and how they do it. But I really admire the way you go about it because you just present the facts and then you kind of just let us know what we need to do, and you've done all of the homework for us. And you have two different programs, and I would love for you to talk about Slay Your PCOS because you've literally made it so easy for someone to jump right in here, get your feet wet, and get started on your healing journey. I love that you took the time to package and put all of this together because, again, you've done so in a way that just makes it feel like a lot of really fun lifestyle changes. I got to be honest, guys, it's not like a lot of rocket science here. It's just trying to enjoy the journey along the way that it seems like you have. Could you tell us about what your programs and offerings look like?
Yeah, totally. And I want to say too, one thing I thought of with your last question is I get asked like every day in my Instagram DMs, people asking me, "Oh, how did you become a PCOS dietitian? Like what course did you take?" And it makes me laugh every time because I'm like, I didn't there is no maybe there is a course how to be, but I don't know of one. And even if there was, like it wouldn't be the same if I had just taken a course. It wouldn't have been the same. So, anyways, I was laughing at that question, but I always answer. I'm like, it wasn't that, it was this. Anyways, yeah, there's not just one path, but so yeah, I have been running two PCOS programs since I started Get Pregnant with PCOS in 2019. So it's been around a long time, and I'm so proud of them because they really are. I'm able to work with women all over the world and really teach them the core fundamentals that they need to know, in terms of not just diet and nutrition, that's the bulk, but stress and gut repair and endocrine disruptors, cycle tracking, all of these things that can be so important that we just don't learn in school. So, those two programs, the Boss Academy is exclusively focused on permanent, non restrictive weight loss. And I always like to lead with non-restrictive weight loss because there really is a way to, and I like to talk about weight loss because I think it's talked about just so wrong in so many ways. I never want someone to feel shamed when they're talking about it's kind of like a ick, like a oh weight loss, but I hope to, change that because you can work on weight loss goals to lower your inflammation, to improve your joint pain, to actually be able to pursue an IVF cycle. There are many reasons we pursue weight loss that have nothing to do with hatred of our bodies. So I want to separate the two. And there's a right way and a wrong way to approach weight loss. And the right way, in my opinion, is that all foods can fit and we can do this in a healthy, slower, sustainable process. And you can feel good at the end. So that's that one. And then I have the Get Pregnant with PCOS, which is focused on that, but also getting pregnant and giving you the fundamentals you need for optimizing your fertility. And both programs really focus on PCOS symptom management. So how do we work on things like facial hair and acne and work on all of that? So yeah, so those are the two, my two babies that I love to run. I run them a few times a year and I keep the cohorts on the smaller side so that I can manage them just myself. I don't pay people to manage them for me. It's all me. And I love that. I love to connect with these women. It's been such a blessing in my life. So I have those two. And then I do have a book that will be coming out probably at the end of 2025. I'm very excited. It's with the publishing house right now. They're kind of going through it and making some of their, edits and reviews. So I'm waiting to hear back, but it's all done and good to go. Right? We're just kind of working on that. So I'm very
Oh,
excited.
congrats.
Thank you. Yeah, a book about PCOS into the hands that need it, that doesn't have a bunch of garbage, misinformation, and BS. It's really factual. It's delivered in a way that is easy to understand and navigate, and it's written very, I think, in just a very relatable, funny way, which is the way that I like to. I don't know. The way that I am. So I'm pretty goofy and funny. So I try to, get that across in the book. It's not just like a dry ass textbook
You're
manual.
like,
It's more than that. Yeah. So I'm very excited about that.
oh, I love it. I also can't for a second ignore the fact that you started a whole supplement company that is supporting
Yes.
PCOS and its symptoms and a PCOS journey.
Yes.
So
I was going to
I
mention.
worked for a pharmaceutical company that specialized in medical grade supplements. So I am fascinated that you took this dive because it was probably a gigantic undertaking, and I'm just that could be an episode into its whole self, which if
Mhm.
you're up for that, I'd love
Yes,
to
part
do
2.
that in the future. But tell us
Yes.
about your vitamin line, your supplement line, and like what led to you creating it because I'm sure there was a distinct line in the sand for you.
Yeah, there's so many supplements out there. And I can't even every single day in the groups that I run for my programs, which I invite questions, every day almost, I get someone who comments a link or a photo of a supplement that they're thinking about taking or they've been taking and they're like, "What's your take on it?" I look at them and I'm like, "What is this?" And it makes no sense and they're charging. I mean, I have a member who literally 2 days ago, she was asking about this supplement. She pays $150 a month for this supplement. There's 2 parts to it. And I'm like, I found her alternatives for less than half of that. And I'm like, take these instead. Like, you don't need that. So there's just an abundance of overpriced. Really, people are preying on women as they do, and especially vulnerable women who have PCOS. And I really work hard to keep my supplements priced very reasonably as I can. But yeah, it was really just born from that, looking and seeing how much stuff is out there that women with PCOS are overpaying for and they don't need to be. And also blends that are just non-specific, like PCOS balance blend. Okay, but what are we balancing? Because every woman with PCOS has different hormones that are out of balance. So you can't just have one supplement that's going to work for every one of us. So that's why my supplements are more specific. Like if you're working on lowering testosterone, you're going to take the androgen blocker. If you're working on adrenal health, getting better sleep, less mood swings, that's the cortisol calmer. There's different purposes. It's not just a blind catch all blend, hormone balance blend. Those drives me nuts. That costs an arm and a leg. It's really the opposite of that. So that's why I created it. And I love my supplement line. I really do. And it's been an incredible tool for so many women. And I hope to add more to the line actually very soon. So yeah, I love it.
Oh my God, yay. Okay, so we'll definitely do a part two. Stay tuned, guys, because it's rare these days to not only find a supplement line that you can trust, but one that's efficacious and done with very specific,
Yes.
parameters in mind. And guys, I won't slander any businesses out there, but if you can buy the supplement anywhere outside of a health food store or an individual like Cory herself has procured it for you, there's little to zero oversight happening over any of the steps or processes between that bottle going from whatever material it was made from to it being complete and now you can take it in your home. So, man, I could talk for years about this, but please just be very mindful of who and what and where. And if you can't identify those things, throw it in the trash because there's zero care or oversight that went into the creation of it. And I think even we'll leave everything in the show notes, but please check out Cory's line. Just the
Thank
fact
you.
that she took everyone's concerns into consideration and took the incredible undertaking of not only creating a supplement line, but one with various products. This is a huge undertaking, and it's done so with your ultimate health and safety in mind, which I think is pretty rad. So thanks for that.
Yes, thank you.
You've been a delight and a dream. Thank you so much for
Yeah, thank
everything that
you.
you put out there into the internet. Can't wait to read your book, and we'll have you back soon to talk about the supplement line. But I have one final question that I ask all of my guests, and it's this: Cory, how do you make your life rich?
I have to I love these end of podcast questions. They're always like they always stump me. I think it's making memories with my family. I think that's the season that I'm in right now. I have 3 little kids under the age of 6 and it is wild out here. It is like the Wild West. It is chaos. It is messy, sticky. There are boogers in every corner of my world and I'm just, it is what it is. And I am embracing it. I'm embracing it, the chaos. My life is rich, even if I didn't have a dollar to my name, because I get to tuck healthy kids into bed and I have a partner who is supportive and loving and I love that man so much and I feel wealthy in every regard simply for those four. I almost said 3. No, we have 3 now. 4. The littlest one is 6 months. Now we are a family of 5. So I feel richer than anyone because of my family. So I'll just just say that. That's how I feel like I am wealthy in my life at this in this.
That's so beautiful. I love that so much. This was such a pleasure. Thank you for sharing everything, both here and just in
Thank you.
general. You are such a godsend for all of us. And
You.
ladies, if you, I mean, you're interested, I know you are. If you've made it definitely this long into the episode, there'll be so many links in the show notes. So please go click there and then just head on over to Cory's, shoot her a little DM, and just, jump in a program, get yourself, just dive in head first. There's never been a better time to get control of your health than now. And by springtime, you could be feeling right as rain. So I think there's a lot to be said for taking action, especially when it comes to your health. So I hope this episode has encouraged you to take some action. And Cory is the best place to head to in that direction. So thank
Thank
you so much, Cory.
you.
This is a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.